Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Now I will continue with the second chapter. I completed till the 57th verse, and the summary of those verses that from 47 to 57, 46 to 57 is, Lord Krishna gave a lot of importance for the karma yoga, and he said that one has no right to choose the result, but one has the right to choose the action. And let your motive be not the result, and at the same time, don't be attached to inaction. And one must train their mind to accept the result as it is, with the equality of mind, accepting the success and failure equally. And one should not waver in this. And this wisdom is the otherwise said as Buddhi Yoga. And a jnani, he will establish in the self by the self. If we do any action as a yoga, then that action will not bind us. So doing an action as a yoga is superior than doing an action. So these are the main points discussed by Lord Krishna in the last 10 or 11 verses. Now I will continue with the 58th verse of chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. In these verses, Lord Krishna tells about how to control the mind and the senses. A lot of importance is given for that. I'll continue with the 58th verse. Yatha sanharate chayam kurmonganiva sarvachah indriyanindriyarthebhyah tasya prajna pradishthita. Lord Krishna says, samharate means withdraw, and kurmo means the tortoise. Angani, just like how a tortoise withdraws its limbs inside it when we go near it. Just like that, a person who wants this jnana yoga, a jnani must train himself to withdraw the senses from the sense objects. So he must withdraw his senses from the sense objects, just like how a tortoise withdraws its limbs from when we go near it. And only then he will be steady in this wisdom. Next verse also discusses about it. Vishaya vinivartande niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasobhyasya param drishtva nivartate. That is rasavarjam. Even when a person withdraws his senses from the sense objects, he may have the longing for these objects. He may have that impression in his mind. He may have that, but only when he realizes that self, then this longing will completely be vanished. Because till then, we feel or we think that there is bliss in enjoying the sense objects. We do not know that that self is that supreme bliss, or it is that supreme satisfaction. Once when we experience that, not just reading or learning about it, once when we experience that, then automatically all the longings for the worldly objects or the worldly life or the sense objects will automatically vanish. Yatato hyabi kaunteya purushasya vibhaschitah indriyani pramatini haranti prasabham manah. But even a jnani, in its beginning stages, he must forcefully control his mind. Forcefully control. Prasabham manah, forcefully control, because we are trained that way. The mind is, the nature of the mind itself is to go externally. It will go only to the external world. It will not go inside. So we have to train that mind to look inside. So we have to do that in the initial stages with a lot of effort. Forcefully we have to do. Tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asida matparaha Vashe hi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pradishtita. Having restrained the senses, all these senses, one must establish all his concentration on the self itself. In the Shankara Bhashyam of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Sri Shankaracharya writes, Asita Matparaha as, he should sit contemplating on me. I am no other than that Bhakta. Because this self is the same self as Lord Krishna. Here, me, in that sense, Lord Krishna doesn't mean the form of Lord Krishna. He means that self. That self is the same as ourself, because the self is all pervading. It is not two or in dual. It is non-dual. So when we contemplate on ourselves, it is same as we are contemplating on Lord Krishna. That's what Lord Krishna says. Having controlled all his senses and controlling the mind, he must meditate on me alone. ध्यायतो विषयान् भुंसः सङ्गस्तेषुपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते क्रोधोद्भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशाः बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति. A very beautiful psychology said by Lord Krishna even 5,000 years back. He explains the nature of the mind. If we think about an object continuously, then we are attached to that object. With that attachment arises desire. We want to own it. That desire arises. And from desire arises anger. We will get it or not. If someone else will get it. If we do not get it, what will be our state? So all this leads to anger. From anger arises delusion. We think one for the other, we understand one for the other, complete delusion of the mind. And from delusion arises the loss of memory. If you are completely confused, then we forget many things and we forget even the important things. And with loss of memory arises discrimination power, loss of discrimination. We will not decide properly. We don't take right decisions when our mind is deluded. And when we are we do not remember anything. So delusion leads to loss of memory, and loss of memory leads to destruction of discrimination power, and this leads to, that's all, a man perishes with it. So just imagine where our attachment to the sense objects has led us. With thinking of the object again and again, we are attached to it. With attachment arises desire. With desire arises anger. With anger arises delusion. With delusion arises loss of memory. With loss of memory arises the complete destruction of the discrimination. And with that, a person perishes. So very beautiful analysis of the mind by Lord Krishna even 5,000 years back. Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyaischaran atmavasyai vidheyatma prasadhamadi gacchati. Here Lord Krishna praises the mind of a steady person who has a steady wisdom. He says, even a person who has controlled the senses, restrained his senses and mind, Even when he is in the center of the sense objects, he will not be attached to it. Atmavasya, that is a person who is self-restrained. Atma, a person who is self-controlled, that is a person who has a sama and dhamma, the control of the mind and the control of the senses. When he is controlled, a person, even when he is among the sense objects, he will not be either attracted by the sense objects or he will not hate anything. So by that he attains peace of mind. He remains in that peace of mind. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasyophajayate prasannachedaso hyashu buddhi paryavadishtati. Lord Krishna says, when he is established in that self, then nothing can disturb him. In that peace, even his sorrows and miseries will be distracted. He remains in this peace of mind in all situations, and he will become more and more steady in that wisdom. नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयतः शान्तिः अशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्. Lord Krishna compares the mind of the person who has a steady intellect and the mind of an ordinary person in this verse. If he is not established in this wisdom, if a person does not have this knowledge, what happens is, na bhavana, he will not meditate, contemplate on the self. He cannot meditate. When he cannot meditate, he cannot attain peace of mind. When he has no peace of mind, kuta sukham, where is the happiness? So that's what Lord Krishna says. If a person meditates on the self, then he has the peace of mind and he remains happily. But if he doesn't meditate, and if he doesn't have this knowledge, he cannot meditate and he cannot remain in that peace of mind. And kutasugam, where will he attain this peace of mind? That's what Lord Krishna asked in this verse. And the next verse, that is the 67th verse, goes like this. Indriyanam hi charatam yanmano vidiyate tadasya harati prajnam vayurnavami vambhasi. Here, Lord Krishna explains the state of the intellect of a person with a very beautiful drishtanta, a very beautiful example. He says that if a person let his mind wandering after the senses, then his intellect will not reach a destination, just like how a boat on the water, when it is wandering here and there by the wind, it will not reach the destination. Just like that, a person's mind who goes after charity, who goes after the senses, who will wanders after the senses, his intellect will not lead him to the destination. That is, if he has unsteady mind, he will not lead the destination. And he explained it with a very beautiful example of the boat. When it is taken by the wind here and there, it just wanders here and there on the water and it will never reach the destination. तस्माद्यस्य महाबाहो निगृहीतानि सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणेन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. Therefore, Mahabaho, Arjuna, a man who has a steady wisdom, he will withdraw his senses from the sense objects and just always from all the time he withdraws his senses from the sense objects A steady person will remain like that. He will always have the controlled mind and the senses. Then only his wisdom will become steady. And the next verse is a very important verse, a much quoted verse, a very beautiful verse. Ya nisha sarvabhutanam tasyam jagarti sayyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato munehe. Here, Lord Krishna compares the mind of the person who has a steady intellect and an ordinary worldly person. Nisha means night actually, but it means darkness also. Jagarti means awaken, wake up. It means daylight, and it also means our wake up state, awake. So Lord Krishna says, that which is dark for all of us, for that normal human beings, in that the jnani is awake. And what is awake, bright for all of us, that is the darkness for the jnani, or he sees that as dark, which means we ordinary people, for us, the self is dark at present because it is covered by ignorance. In that self, the jnani is awake. For the worldly person, for any worldly person, the self is dark for him. But in that, the jnani is awake. And for a worldly person, this external world or this transactional reality or the world, that in that he is awake. But a jnani, he sees that as ignorance and that is dark for him. So here Lord Krishna compares the Dvaita and Advaita philosophy with this comparison. That self is dark for an ordinary person, but that is bright awake. The jnani is awake in that darkness, that is in that self. An ordinary person, he is awake in this world, in this worldly life, but jnani sees that as darkness because he sees that as ignorance. A very beautiful comparison of the person who has wisdom and a person who doesn't have wisdom. अपूर्यमाणमचलप्रदिष्ठं समुद्रमापस्प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत् कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी. Here also, in this verse also, Lord Krishna compares the difference between a person who has controlled the mind and an ordinary person. Lord Krishna says, for a person who has controlled his mind, when desire comes from all sides, that means even when he is in the worldly life, many desires are around him, many sense objects are around him. He has many, he will get many temptations. But a man of steady wisdom, a person who has controlled mind, he will not be affected by it. And he gives another example for it. Just like when how water from all the sides enter a ocean, the ocean is not, the samudra, the ocean is not affected by it. Many rivers enter the ocean. The ocean doesn't increase its volume of water, neither will it dry up. So just like that, the intellect of a person who has a steady wisdom, he is not affected by any desires. But this is not the same with a person who does not have steady wisdom. And he gives a very beautiful phrase for a worldly minded person. Kama kami, desirer of the desires. So that person, he will not have that peace of mind because he will be disturbed even by a single desire. So he compares the person with the steady wisdom and the worldly person. Vihaya kamanya sarvan bhumamscharati nisprihah nirmamo nirahankarah sashantim adhigacchati. Shantim adhigacchati. He remains in that peaceful nature, abandoning all the desires, and restraining his senses without not even the nisprha, not even the longing for that sense objects, with excluding all the desires from his mind, not even the longings or that impression he has. Nirmama, he will not have that feeling of mine. Only when we have desire, we want to own that sense object, any object. So we have that feeling, it is mine. So he will not have a jnani or a person well established in this wisdom, he will not have that feeling. Nirmama, nirahankara, without any ego. He will not have that feeling of individuality because he has realized the self and he becomes one with Brahman. So he will not have that feeling of individuality. Shantim adhigacchati. He will remain in peace, always remain in peace. So next is the last shloka of the chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. येषा भ्रामिस्थितिः पार्थ नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यते स्थित्वा स्यामन्तकालेऽपि ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति. Lord Krishna says he remains in that peaceful state, and that state is known as the Brahmistiti. Brahmistiti means that eternal state, complete satisfaction in the self, by the self. He remains in peace. Till when? Till his prarabdha karmas are over. Till his end of life. That is the end of his prarabdha karma. But the prarabdha karmas will not affect him. Just like how Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, at the end of his life, he was affected by some bodily diseases, but he didn't care for it. He didn't realize that pain itself. Just like that, that's what Lord Krishna said, nothing can destroy his peace of mind. And he remains in that peaceful state, in that satisfied state, in that Brahma Sthiti itself, till the end of his life. And after that, he becomes one with Brahman. Brahma Nirvanam Rachati. That is, he gets that, he becomes one with Brahman. That is, the Jiva, it becomes Paramatma. The Jiva becomes one with Brahman. That is the reflection of the consciousness that goes back to that pure consciousness itself. He becomes this Brahman. And Lord Krishna explains about the Videha Mukti in this verse. He attains that Brahma Nirvana or Brahma. So with that ends the long chapter, chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. A very beautiful chapter which explains the Karma Yoga, Jnana, Mukti, how to control the mind, how to rise up to the situation, even in adverse situations, how to control the mind, how to make the power of mind powerful. So all that was discussed in this chapter, and that's in the chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. Om Tat Sat Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Sankhya Yogo Nama Dvitiyodhyayah. Now the last verse of Bhagavad Gita. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna Yatra Partho Dhanurdara Tatra Srirvijayo Bhuti Dhruvani Tirmatirmama. Om Shri Krishnarpanamastu. I will continue with chapter 3 in my next video.